I don't hate the gig economy, but I am beginning to hate it. Find out why I'm beginning to hate the gig economy here on this segment of the Gig Geezer. Well, today is Sunday, July 10, 2022. And if this is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. And if you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, hey, thanks for coming back. Now, really what this segment of the Gig Geezer is about is really something that's kind of come upon me in the last day or so, and that's my dislike for doing the gig economy work. I'm sure we've all felt this way about certain things or even people in life, and I'll just leave it at that about the people. This is not about airing out grievances about other folk, but I've reached this point a couple of times, most notably in over the years. The first time I felt this way was back in late 1999, while I was in the newspaper business. The very profession that I wanted to be a part of from childhood, I got to a point where I just didn't like it anymore. I really didn't like it. I think when you say that a profession that you wanted to be a part of since childhood, you're basically living out a dream. I mean, how many people can say that they actually went to school and excelled in a profession that they wanted to be a part of since childhood? But I'd gotten to that point, and a few months later, I really saw the writing on the wall, and I was afforded an opportunity to leave on my terms. I literally was able to walk away from the business. In fact, my very last day at the newspaper, which was February the year 2000, not many days before my birthday, in fact, I filed a couple of stories, got up, and walked out the side door, and basically never looked back. The next time that I felt that way was about 10 years later, and I was doing something that I had wanted to do basically since childhood. I told a couple of my high school classmates that I wanted to host my own radio show, and in my own way I did. Blog Talk Radio, which is nothing more than a social media and podcast. At least when I did it, it was in the early infancy days of podcasting, on a mass basis, where you can pretty much do what you could do on YouTube now and Zoom and all these others. They were like the first. I've shared how I had one of the most popular shows on the internet at the time, because Blog Talk Radio was the platform. YouTube was still not a part of Google. Going back to what I mentioned about the talk show from high school, yeah, they kind of laughed. They kind of snickered and laughed, but I kind of got the last laugh, because 30 years later, I actually had hosted a format in which I had people on, in which I had conversation, and some noted people. I've shared before where I had Billy Davis Jr. and Marilyn McCoo of the Fifth Dimension on my show. I had Patrice Rushen. I had Gerald Albright. I had Judge Lynn Toller. I had Mary B. Morrison, a New York Times best-selling author. Who else? I had Brenda Russell on my show. I had some heavy hitters on my show, man, and the people listened to it. According to Blog Talk Radio, over that year that I hosted the shows, I had over 500,000 downloads at the time. Yeah, so that's pretty good there. But it got to a point, I want to say towards the end of 2009, the beginning of 2010, I started questioning my sanity. After I'd finished each show, I began questioning my sanity, like, why am I doing this? I'm starting to hate this. I'm putting in all this time, and I'm hating it now. Well, that's kind of the way I'm feeling about the that's kind of the way I'm feeling about the gig economy. I've put in a lot of time doing gig economy work. Maybe not the 55, 60, 65, 70, 80 hours as some people have put in each week doing gig economy work, but I've put in what some would say a full-time effort. In that, in my six and a half days, I put in anywhere between 45 and 52, 53 hours. That's full-time work, man. And for all the money that I've made, last night was the first time I said I'm beginning to hate doing gig economy work. You would think that for all the good things that for all the good things that has come as a result of me doing gig economy work, and don't get me wrong, I'll say it again, I have averaged over $75,000 a year each of the last 2 calendar years, and I'm on pace to do the same thing again. I've showed how I've been able to move into another place that I'm renting. I've shared how I was in a situation a year ago where I had to buy 2 vehicles, make transactions for 2 vehicles within the span of a month. I was in a position to do that. I've shared how I've been able to be of some financial prominence in my daughter's life as she has pursued her undergrad, master's, and now doctorate degrees. I'll just throw this out there. I mean, I can say that the gig economy put me in a position to where I pursued my freedom, my emancipation, out of a marriage that should have been over long ago, but it wasn't. But I had to put myself in a position to withstand leaving the marriage. So yes, the gig economy has been good to me, and I've tried to do things. It's like the saying is like, if you take care of your vehicle, it'll take care of you. And I believe that because I've been in many of the situations doing gig economy work, and just in my days as a newspaper reporter, where my taking care of my vehicle, it is taking care of me in situations that you're like, man, I hope my vehicle doesn't fail me tonight. And that's the way I feel that I have treated the gig economy, despite what may be said about some of my questionable tricks and ploys to do what I do. But I can't complain. I really can't complain on that end. But the gig economy, man, it's the grind and the hustle is really a challenge. And if you're up for it, you respond day in and day out. The fact that I average over $200 a day, as I have, the fact that I have made over $200 a day pretty much every day that I come out here, that's no small accomplishment. I mean, I see people talking about how they've done it 5 and 6 days in a row. Shit, man, do it 18 days in a row, 27 days in a row, 44 days in a row, 32 days in a row, day in and day out. I don't know how it is for you though, but when I reach that point where I'm beginning to hate something, I just can't explain it. I just know within that I'm not liking what I'm doing anymore. Again, I'm not saying that I've always had this, I've been in love with what I'm doing in terms of gig economy. It's just evolved it has evolved into a primary way of me earning a living. And I think that's the way for a lot of folk. You don't start off doing this saying that, hey, my goal is to make $3,000 a month, $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month, as I do. I don't think that's the way it works. You start out just wanting to see how it goes, and if you begin to make some money that you kind of like, then you may expand on what you're doing. And that's kind of what I've done. But then again, I may be wrong with that mindset, because a lot of the majority of people who are doing gig economy work now, and it's starting to rain here in the Columbia metropolitan area. And by the way, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hey, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. For by doing so, you are helping out the Gig Geezer channel and the YouTube algorithm, in which it may push my channel a little higher up in the ratings and may suggest it to other people. Well, that said, a couple years ago, 2020, a lot of jobs had shut down, maybe temporarily and in some cases permanently. Folk needed to make money, and they heard about how you can make money on these gig economy apps, and maybe they did go in with the intent of trying to make all that they could. And when they found out they could make some money doing the gig economy work, it's like, do I need that job anymore? Do I need that W-2 anymore? So I get that. But there are folk like me who were in the gig economy prior to 2020. We just kind of got in. We heard about how you can make some money on the side. I mean, as for me, as I've shared, I felt that I needed to find a way to make some extra money to help my daughter as she was working towards her undergraduate degree. Uber and Lyft afforded me that opportunity, and then it evolved into delivery stuff with Amazon Flex, and then it evolved with DoorDash and Postmates, and then now all these other gig delivery apps. So, again, I'm just not liking it anymore, man. And what happens is when you don't, well, actually, I can think of another job that I have shared, a job that I actually despised and I hated, and it was a job 10 years ago at the insurance company. The reason I call it the insurance company, because there's only one health insurance company that is domiciled or based out of South Carolina. And so working in that call center setting, I hated that place. I still hate that place. And that's 10 years later. I still hate that place. But I'm not to that type of despisement, that type of hatred, that type of vitriol. No, I'm not there. But I am at a point where I'm like, okay, I'm out here again. That's where I'm at right now. So yes, I welcome your comments and your input on this particular segment of the Gig Geezer. Where are you in your where is your mental state about the gig economy? I mean, are you at a point where you're beginning to hate it, or you are already there? I know that gas prices has affected a lot of folks' approach towards doing gig work, in which they've gone back to the W-2. The slowing down of the gig economy, the slowing down of demand has sent some people back to doing W-2 work. There are a lot of factors out there, but then you have some people out there who are saying, "Oh, I'm done with it," but then a week later they're back at it again. Again, I am not saying that I'm looking to make a departure from the gig economy. I've just reached a point where I'm not even going to say if there was a honeymoon, because if there was a honeymoon, hell, then it's been a 6-year honeymoon, and I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that, again, I'm just at a point where the gig economy has reached a point of perfunctory for me. It's perfunctory. It's like, the gig economy to me is like a W-2 now, at least in my mental approach to it. And I was not a big fan of most W-2 gigs. I was never a fan of. I liked being a sports reporter. I liked the autonomy that I had as a sports reporter. I didn't have to work the desk, at least at the last newspaper that I worked at. I hated working the editing desk. I wanted to be out there among the people, out there where the action was. I wanted to have the bylines and all, and that's what I did. I lived that life. So, and man, if I could have made it to a destination newspaper and be a prominent beat writer, that would have been nirvana for me. Man, I mean, to be out there 8, 9, 10 months out of the year on the road, doing what you like, oh man, that's the life. At least for some people. And you know what? I like the autonomy that the gig economy affords me as it is now. I like that autonomy. I don't have to answer up to anyone. All I have to do is just make sure that I don't have any contract violations or get any deactivation emails or temporary account suspension emails. So all that means is just doing what I need to do, right? I mean, by and large, again, the money. I'm okay with the money that I make. I mean, who wouldn't be okay with the money that I make? Along those lines, with the money made, how many jobs, and some people shared this, and I have shared this a number of times as well. How many jobs, W-2 jobs out there will pay you $6,000 a month without a college degree, without years, if not decades, experience? How many jobs out there? I mean, I'll put it like this: when I was in a newspaper business, and you can say this 20 years ago, if you made $75,000 a year or better, you were probably at a large market newspaper. I'm talking about like the Atlantas, the Chicagos, the Washington D.C.s, the Houstons, the Los Angeles, those type of markets. And in those type of markets, you're talking like your top 50 markets that are out there. Those are the places that, according to the Associated Press, they had just their city as a part of the dateline. It was like Washington, D.C., and that's it. You didn't have Columbia, South Carolina. That was like your minor places. Your major places were the single dateline places. To make that type of money, you had to be at a large newspaper, or you had to be in management. You probably had to be the editor of the newspaper, depending on the size of the market, to make that type of money. So that means you had to go through a lot of stuff to get there. You don't have to do that with the gig economy. All you have to do is, if you can figure out how to make it work in terms of working that single app, 2 apps, or as I do, as many as working 7 apps at one time. If you can do that, if you put in the time and effort, man, you can make that type of money, man. You know, there's no shame in what I'm saying. Again, I mean, yeah, you don't have to get in debt for a college education to make this type of money. That's the other thing, man. I mean, my daughter has got a mountain of debt awaiting her. The day that she defends her doctoral thesis will be the day that she will have to start paying back all those goddamn student loans that she took out to get to that point. And I cringe for her. Now I know I'm going off on a tangent, but just bear with me here. And to put it into perspective, when I got my lone undergrad, where I went to Texas Southern, and when I finished in 1988, I finished Texas Southern with $6,000 in student loans. At the time at Texas Southern, for tuition, in-state, and books, to cost you about $1,600 a year. Yeah, both spring and fall semesters, fall and spring semesters. $1,600 for both tuition and books, and I paid off that student loan debt in 4.5 years. To that point, my daughter will probably make what I'm making coming out of school, but more than likely be making 6 figures within a year or two coming out of school. I can't say that in 3-4 years that I'll be making 6 figures. It'd be nice if I do. Certainly that would be in a nice situation as I'm looking towards retirement, definitely. But again, the gig economy has afforded me the opportunity to make what was big time money when I was in the newspaper business. Can I make that money as an insurance agent? I'm pretty sure I can, if I can build up a book of business like that would yield that type of money. But we're talking a book of business in upwards, at a minimum, in upwards of $600,000-700,000. But really to make that type of money, when you have your own agency, as I do, you need to have people working for you. The problem when you're an independent agent, which is what I am, I represent multiple companies, and I am not captive to any company, say like your State Farms or your Allstates, and what used to be the nationwide business model. You have to have people working under you. The catch is that as an independent agent, you're just like as a gig economy worker. You eat what you kill. You work strictly by commission. Whereas as a captive agent, you're an employee, and basically the pay model is pretty much set up as salary plus commission. The commission part is just a small fraction of the business that you write. The person who gets most of that money is the agency principal, the agency owner, which would be me if I had my own Allstate or State Farm agency. The thing is that a lot of people do not want to work for commission. They come in working. They want to be assured of something to fall back on, but that's not the way the independent agency model works. You have to come in. Especially if you're coming off the street, you may go your first 2-3 months broke, literally. When I first started almost 20 years ago, doing primarily health insurance work, in which I went after group clients, setting up their group health or group dental, group vision, or their AFLAC, things like that. I struggled profoundly for almost 2 years before I caught on with a client that put me in a position to where I was bringing in, just on that client alone, a couple of grand a month. And I was having a large group client. And a lot of people are not willing to struggle that long in a 100% commission pay structure to get there. And I understand. So that's why something like gig economy, the gig economy itself has put me in a position where insurance work is my part-time work, really. But what I'm thinking of doing is trying to get it to where it's like 60-40, maybe 70-30, 75-25. And all it takes is a few commercial clients to do that. So that's what I'm thinking of doing as well. I'm thinking of diversifying things again to where I am not 90% as I am with gig economy. And so there are things that I am looking into. I'm looking into diversifying my YouTube presence, as I've hinted at. I've got the equipment in place. I've been working. I've been practicing on it. I've been tinkering around trying to figure out how to make it work and all. I'll be introducing content in a much different way soon, uploading it on my channels. I'll be presenting things in a different way on my channels as well. So watch out for that. Probably be some new branding as well. These are things that I'm looking into doing. You definitely can teach an old dog some new tricks. And maybe there's some old tricks though, but this old dog is working some new tricks as well. So maybe that's why I'm starting to hate the gig economy as I am, because I am seeing where I have to look other directions. Sometimes you have to make your next move. You have to play chess and not checkers. And with that, again, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hey, hit that subscribe button. Give my content a thumbs up. Share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. Admittedly, there are days in which I want to just say fuck it and turn off all the apps and go home. And there are some times in which I actually do that. Typically, it's when I've been out at least 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 4 hours. And based on what I've made, that's when I'll say fuck it and just turn off all the apps. But I'm the type of person who is going to I'm the type of person who's going to put in my best effort every day. I don't want to leave money out there if I have something to do. If I can do something about it, I don't want to leave any money out there. Of course, 2 years ago, you could leave money out there because there was so much money out there. And what I mean by that, you can talk of it being the golden era of gig app delivery work. in that you had so much demand and people were paying. They were paying for you to deliver items to them. That's not the case now in 2022, as was the case in 2019 and before. Now, you're just a necessary evil to achieve these companies in, and that's what I was getting at earlier. I mean, you've got these companies that are looking into using. You've got these companies that are looking into using robots and drones and other automated means of delivery. And of course, you do that, then you take out the middle person, which is you and me, and that people are not having to pay tips, not having to pay mileage. The gig app companies are not having to pay mileage or heavy pay. That's another overhead. No, all they have to do is just charge the customer whatever that convenience is going to be for the automated service. I am not going to make any prediction as to when that's going to be like a full-blown reality. Obviously, efforts at using automated vehicles, like with Uber, where they tried to use a driverless vehicle and it killed someone. I think actually at least one person and maybe a second person. There's a liability involved, and who's going to be liable, and and more than likely you're going to follow the money. So you're going to go after Uber for that money. And after a couple of those type of lawsuits, that may be an expensive proposition, but at some point it's going to be perfected, and it's going to be like the Jetsons, with all these drones and robots milling about. But then again, there may be the need for human services, human work, humans actually delivering things to people. I just don't know enough to really say something qualified, but I can pose the question about liability. Who's going to be liable if in the event something happens? And all it takes, again, is a couple of lawsuits, and they will be rethinking what they're doing. What happens is that once you've invested millions into something like that, it's very hard to let go of something like that as well. I mean, you're so invested, you're looking to try to make some type of return on investment to save face. I mean, that's just the ego of things, though. But even with what we do on our small scale, we invest so much time and so much effort into things, and then we want to see a return on our investment. So there you have it. I've explained why my feelings towards the gig economy have changed the way they have recently. It's not a love-hate situation. It's not really a hate situation at all. It's just that it's beginning to feel like a W-2. As I've shared already, it's like it's becoming very perfunctory. It's like I have somewhat of a nonchalant attitude towards it right now. At the same time, I realize the gig economy is probably my best source or means of making the money that I've been making. So, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer or in any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hey, hit that subscribe button. Give my content a thumbs up. Share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Lane, and as always, may your hustle and may your grind continue.